My name is Laura Rumbley. I'm the Director for Knowledge Development and Research at the European Association for International Education. I've been a student of internationalization for more than 20 years. I think at its heart, it is a phenomenon that is designed to allow all of us to experience new and different things that take us beyond our normal national context, our normal cultural context, and allows us to develop new ideas, new insights, new information that allow us to work in the world in more effective ways, to bridge distances with others, and be able to collaborate and think globally in terms of the work that we do and the lives that we lead. Now, that's a very general definition. Within the context of higher education, internationalization is commonly understood to include the incorporation of international, intercultural, and global components that inform our studies, our research activities, the way that our higher education institutions work in the world. So that gives you a bit of a flavor of what internationalization can be. I think there's a strong emphasis to draw on the region because internationalization in the European context is quite dynamic. It's quite well developed. I think if you compare world regions, Europe is quite often referred to as a reference point of some very dynamic activity through funding mechanisms at the European Union level, but also down to the level of national decisions and policymaking and institutional activity. Challenges and opportunities often come down to defining the goals for internationalization. What exactly are we trying to do? And how do we imagine that we will get there? At my association, the EAIE, we've done a very comprehensive study of professionals who are working in this field. And we asked them to talk to us about the priorities that they see as important for their institutions to achieve their internationalization goals over the next 3 to 5 years. And what we found was that across Europe, our colleagues are identifying many different areas that require attention, from student attraction of international talent, to strengthening the international and intercultural dimension of the curriculum, to developing key partnerships, to acting in a more socially responsible way in the context of internationalization. So what that tells us is that there are many different opportunities in which to develop this work, but how then do you prioritize amongst all of those? And how do you make sure that all of those efforts are attended to in smart ways? So I think it really is a question of finding focus, but also realizing that internationalization is a broad phenomenon that does need attention in a variety of areas. And I think some countries certainly have maybe a particular reputation or visibility on the global landscape that makes it easy for them to attract international students, for example. So that can be a barrier or a challenge that may affect some countries. On the other hand, some countries can be a little too successful in attracting international talent and face new challenges. So I live and work in the Netherlands, and there's a very interesting national debate going on there about the extent to which higher education should be offering courses in English, which is an attractor for international students for a whole lot of reasons. There are questions about that. But also in being successful in attracting international students, we're also facing a very serious student housing shortage and crisis. So that is a very, I think, particular challenge that certain countries and cities may face when it comes to this dynamic. I think there are two that spring immediately to mind, and then there are lots of spin-offs from that. I think certainly an openness to understand that there is a world out there, and whether I am a nurse or an accountant or a diplomat, there are things that are happening in the world that have an impact on my profession, on how I live in the world, and on some level, and it will be different from discipline to discipline, I need to be aware of those things. I need to be competent as an operator in my specific field to know how to work with those cultural differences that I may encounter, with the global trends that may have an impact on the work that I do. So an openness to understanding that that is a reality of our time is certainly important. A Poland expert, so I think what I'm witnessing here is a very, very appropriate and thoughtful approach, which is to both consult and reflect and discuss internally across a broad range of stakeholders, as well as scan the environment in the immediate neighborhood of Poland, in the larger European context, and more globally, to see what others are doing, to try and understand where Poland falls on a continuum of development of strategy and activity, how that can compare to what others have done, what they can learn from that. So I think really being, as I say, open to the world and to other experiences will do a lot to inform the Polish experience, but also being true to what's right and correct for Poland at this time, I think is really important. I heard one very interesting comment in one of the sessions today that really pointed a finger at the idea of connecting with the Polish diaspora. And I think that's a very, very interesting and strategic line of action for Poland to consider as well in the midst of everything else.